What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Extraordinary episode number 18. Today we got super awesome guests. We got Jason Klamm from Detroit, Michigan. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Like I said, like I told you before I hit record, I'm burnt to
Mm-hmm.
shit,
Mm-hmm.
and my body hurts.
Mm-hmm.
my uh, my 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 girlfriend's daughter had her birthday yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
and we built a redneck slip and slide at at the family's farm. And
Uh-huh.
so, in order to appease the kid, they wanted to see the big bearded man go down the hill.
Of course.
So, so everything had to toe hurts.
I love it. Wow. I mean, I guess it's worth the pain at the end of the day if you entertain a bunch of kids, right?
It definitely is worth it's worth the pain, especially when they're like, "Hey, five of us at one time," and you're in the middle. I'm like, "All right, let's go, let's do this."
That's remarkable. I love it.
It's insane. It just became one giant chain, and I was pulling these kids down the slip and slide.
That's so good.
It was wild. It was wild. But anyways, we're not here for me. We're here for Jason. So, Jason, would you like to give a formal introduction of yourself?
Sure. I'm an author. I'm a podcaster, voiceover actor. I'll end it there. I do a lot of little shit, like, and have been my whole career. But those are the things I guess I do the most. And I got a book coming out oh my God, in a month, called We're Not Worthy. And it's a history of 90s TV sketch comedy.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Yeah, I was when I was reading the notes that you sent me, I was like, he's a man of many hats.
That, and by the way, having that many hats, real big problem. When I lived in LA for 18 years, they're like, you maybe you stick with one thing, just pick one thing and do that real well. It's like, but I am impatient. I can't. So, you know.
Money doesn't grow on trees, guys.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. So it ended up being a whole lot of day job, day job, day job. And can I do this job for just 2 hours a day and not tell anybody and do the rest of, and it worked out, sort of kind of worked out, if I'm honest.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's pretty cool, man. So let's get it started, man. You grew up in England.
Yeah, I was born there, and I didn't live there for too long, but I did grow up because my parents were both in the Air Force. So I grew up in Germany, and then mostly upstate New York, but I was born in England and lived there for a couple of years. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking that because when I saw that you were born in England, you moved all over the place. I was like, the only thing that makes sense is Air Force.
Right.
It's the
Yeah.
only thing that makes sense.
Yeah, that's how they met. I still don't 100% know how they met because they don't really care, so they don't talk about it. So it's, but yeah, they met, lived there for a couple years, and then went everywhere until my dad finally retired from the Air Force and settled down in upstate New York.
Nice. They probably met just like on Top Gun.
Yeah, sure. I'm sure that's exactly how that went. One who worked at the post office and the other one who was a medic. I'm sure that's the most boring version of Top Gun.
Oh goodness, oh goodness, man. So what was like as a veteran? I know my experience in the military life, but as a dependent, how
Mhm.
was that for you? How was it? Was it a little bit difficult to form relationships and bonds?
Yeah, I will say, like, I did not, and still probably sometimes don't value making friendships as much as I should. It took so long to learn how, and like my best friend though, like we've been buddies for 34 years now. So like I say that, and like we still have known each other forever. But like outside of that, and like a core group of my friends in LA, not great at making friends. I'm okay with the friends I have. But I do try and keep a tight inner circle. And yeah, it was weird because like first couple years in upstate New York, my dad had to finish out his job, which was he was stationed in Ohio. So he was basically gone for, a couple years until I was like 10. So it was kind of crazy. I still miss a lot of the travel. I still love the idea of traveling. Like
Yeah,
Germany is beautiful, and kind of miss that, but you
yeah.
know.
I've been to Germany for training, and it's
Hmm.
just mind blowing.
Where did you
I
train?
I was in Grafenwehr for a little bit, and
Okay.
then Hohenfels for a little bit. I was
Hmm.
stationed in Italy as my first duty station, so
Wow. Okay.
I got to go everywhere. You had to drive through Austria to get to Germany, so it's
Oh
just
yeah.
beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Amazing.
Absolutely, absolutely insane. So, what was like one of the coolest things that you got to experience as a kid, as a dependent of somebody of parents in the Air Force?
You know, it was, especially living in Germany, like the travel you could make to other countries, exactly what you're talking about. Like they took it, it's funny, we visited Salzburg, Austria, because like, let's go to Mozart's. Like, for some reason, they'd let me watch Amadeus as a little kid, don't know why. And I love that movie, but it's
Yeah,
intense as fuck.
it
And
is.
so they let's go to Salzburg, let's go to Mozart's, like the house he was born in or raised in or whatever. And that was great, except for my dad parked the car like somewhere where you can't park a car and got towed. So we were stuck in Salzburg for
Oh,
the rest of the day. So many of our stories are like, so one of the parents did something because they weren't thinking straight because they got parent brain, and or going to Holland and my parents saying, "Yeah, like you're gonna hang out here with your grandma. We're gonna go to Amsterdam." And I'm like, "Why?" And they're like, "We're gonna go to Amsterdam. Bye." And like, so I've never been to Amsterdam, even though I have seen plenty of Holland. I was near Amsterdam. I remember smelling. It was right before one of the big parades, and the smell of tulips in the air is the most intense thing I've ever smelled in my life, and it's beautiful. Just little stuff like that. So I got a little bit of like I got to be worldly, and then eventually got too poor to be worldly, but I have those memories, and I we can't take them away.
no, the memories remain.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
That's pretty awesome, though. I
Yeah,
mean, I've never been to Holland. That would be a cool experience. I got to go to. I mean, you lived in England for a little bit, but I
yeah.
got to go. I got to go to England and
Hmm.
and train with the British paratroopers. That was fun.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I got to experience and go to like Oxfordshire and like
Hmm.
spent a day in London, and that was just really cool. It was a different experience, because you live in the Americas for so long,
Yeah.
and you walk around, you see everybody face deep in their cell phone. You go over there, and nobody is in their phone on their
Okay.
phones there.
Yeah.
And I just looked around. I was like, people pay attention to their children and their animals. What?
Yeah, you know, I went there for my honeymoon because I'm like, I have to get back at some point. And I'm like, as an adult, Europe is a very different thing. But that you're right. I mean, I mean, I was also there during the holidays, so nobody was on the streets. So it was like we were in a zombie movie. It was great, like the greatest zombie movie ever. Nobody's trying to eat us. I literally could walk up to the gates of Buckingham Palace and nobody was there. It was kind of intense. And were you at RAF Fairford by any chance? Would you what RAF state? Where did
Oh
do you know?
goodness.
That's the only one
Yeah,
I know because that's where my parents were stationed. But
yeah. So we were in RAF, but I think we were on the western one.
okay,
I can't remember.
I
I
can't remember
can't
either.
honestly. It was my brain injuries kind of prevent
Sure,
me from
that'll do
from
it.
remembering certain things. But yeah, I can't remember. I remember like we jumped with the British Air Force,
Uh huh.
and that's where I found out like that as a paratrooper, that's their only job.
Wow. Okay.
Absolutely mind blowing. Your job is to jump out of an airplane. That's
Just
it.
jump. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. But then we got to go and tour in Oxford for a day, and that was
Amazing.
cool. That
That's
was cool because like I realized Harry Potter was a thing over there,
oh sure,
right?
sure. Yeah, yeah. Right.
Like wand shops everywhere. Kids are walking around in the long flowing cloaks. I'm like,
Love it.
where's Ron? Where's Ron?
That's
And
amazing.
yeah, and I got to drive on the wrong side of the road. That's
Of
super
course.
cool.
Oh my god, that's more guts than I have. I have thought about retiring there if I can ever retire. I'm a millennial, so that's not likely. But if I can, but I will say I don't think I'll ever drive over there. I'm too afraid. I am too deathly afraid. I don't want to drive here. So I'm very scared of that idea. Like you've got some guts and boy oh boy, no thank you.
Well, so I think like I was excited about the opportunity to drive because I was one of three people that could drive
Okay.
over in England,
Okay.
and I was trying to convince my commander to be like, "Hey, co-sign on some Jaguars." He was like, "No, no," and I'm like, "Why not?" He's like, "No, I know you," and I was like, "Yeah, you do, but we need Jaguars for this week-long trip, dude." And he wouldn't sign on it, so we got Jeeps. It's a downgrade.
You tried. I admire that Sergeant Bilko spirit. I love that you
Yeah,
tried to get like a couple I love that. That's beautiful.
you gotta have balls sometimes, man. Gotta have balls sometimes. But you went to school in Chicago. How was that?
Oh my god. It's so funny cuz like so because of the pandemic, because of the pandemic I moved to the Detroit area, but also because of the pandemic I still basically don't leave my house almost ever. And that means I have not gone to Chicago, which is 3.5 hours away. I miss it so much. It's like my I don't love cities, but I love Chicago. It's tall and scary, but in a way I love. It's not like New York where I feel lost no matter where I am. Chicago is just gorgeous. The architecture is phenomenal. The weather sucks ass, but I don't care. It's still Chicago. Like I don't feel that way about any other city. I do miss it. And it could be, it's weird because I was miserable while I was there, but in with a little bit of hindsight, it's like, no, you were in a really gorgeous place with a lot of opportunities. But yeah, I miss it. I mean, and I went there for film school, so that was like the beginning of like learning how to not just make stuff on my own, like learning to work with a team, which I was not and still am not very good at. But it was a good experience that you absolutely have to have if you're going to be a filmmaker or try to be one.
Nice. My only experience in Chicago is like driving through Chicago in
Uh-huh.
traffic.
Oh, that's rough. No, that's rough.
I don't
It
want
it has very good public transit, or did when I lived there. So it's like if you got to drive there, fine, but don't drive around Chicago. It's a terrible idea. I
to.
would
Yeah,
just say that.
it's a real quick way to have an anxiety attack
Oh yeah.
like
Oh
that.
yeah, 100%. I've been a passenger in Chicago traffic, been like, fuck this, I'm walking. No, I'm done. I'm done. Hate
Let me
it.
out right here.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. I've had those moments.
Well, and I'm a huge professional wrestling fan, and
Huh?
like one of the big like hubs for wrestling is Chicago,
Okay. Okay.
right? So there's a big wrestling shirt company that's based out of Chicago called Pro Wrestling Tees.
Mm-hmm.
And so like that's one of the things I'm like, if I ever landed in Chicago for any godforsaken reason, I'm going there.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Is that Colt Cabana's company or is that somebody
Yep.
else's? Oh, it is.
Colt
Okay. All
Cabanas.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's great. All right. I
Yeah.
don't
I
know
love
shit
Colt.
about wrestling, but I like Colt Cabana. I know him and I like him. I don't know him personally, but he's a funny dude.
Yeah. Cole's pretty cool. I got to meet him in 2019. Pretty nice guy.
Nice. I love it.
Um, that and I have a weird thing where I like serial killers like like looking into them. Like
Okay.
okay, not like the fact that they killed, but like the
Sure.
psychology,
Yeah,
right?
of
Like the
course. No, that stuff's
psychology of what
interesting.
made yeah what made them break. And one of my favorite ones to hear about and learn about is H. Holmes,
Of
and
course.
that's he lived in Chicago.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I it's interesting. So you're interested in that part. I'm interested in the actual White City where he basically supposedly did the murders.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated with the whole World's Fair. One of my podcasts is my best friend Dan and I. It's called Dan and Jay's Comedy Hour,
Yeah.
and we do sketch comedy. Well, we did sketch comedy a lot when we were kids. We still do it, but the podcast is discussing our sketches, and now it has slowly formed into us inviting on historical figures. And my buddy Alan Rickert played H. Holmes a couple of episodes, made him the weirdest, horniest dude on the planet, and it was so. Because here's the thing, I don't begrudge anybody their love of true crime if they love it for whatever reason, and people have their reasons. I don't like it, but it's only because I've got personal reasons for not, which we could go into or not, but it gets weird when people sexualize serial killers or murderers. So on the podcast, we over sexualize them. So anytime, so if he came on, we're like, yeah, the absolute smoke show, H. Holmes is here. And like, to be fair, Alan's a very handsome man. So he pulled it off. It was, yeah, that is, I am also weirdly interested in H. Holmes and also the White City. Anybody who doesn't know about the White City, look it up. It's a weird temporary city that was set up in Chicago and gorgeous. The most beautiful thing you've ever seen, but temporary and just collapsed eventually and taken down.
Yeah, my dad was like, he was like, so who's your favorite serial killer? I was like, well, first off, like let's take that favorite out. Let's scratch that out, Dad, because we're not doing that here.
Uh-huh.
But
Fair.
if I had to say my favorite one to like study, would be
Yeah,
H. Holmes,
he's
and he was like,
fascinating.
he's very fascinating, and like how he got away with it for so long
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
blew my mind.
Don't get it. I don't get it. Like you have, again, pure premeditation and lack of suspicion. You have to be the
Yeah,
most ordinary man basically to everybody, and then, yeah.
yeah, and
Get weird.
some of the theories that are floating around about him being Jack the Ripper.
Oh yeah, right. I forgot that that was Jack the Ripper also appears on our podcast a few times.
Sick. I bet he's a tall, slinky bastard.
In our case, he is my best friend, but in the future, who has gone back in time via steam power, and he's kind of a steampunk robot, sex worker murderer. So he's his own thing.
He's his own classification.
Uh huh.
He
Uh huh.
identifies as a robot.
Uh huh. Pretty much. It's fascinating.
So you go to school in Chicago
Mhm.
and you end up in LA. Tell me about that. How is that time in LA? Because I've heard that it can either eat you up or you can thrive.
I guess more of the former. I mean, it's funny, like I say that, and at the end of my time there, I've got if I look at the resume that I give a shit about, not the one of
Yeah.
my day jobs, it's not bad. Like I did 3 movies on my own there. I wrote 2 books. I edited like 1,200 podcasts. I was in like 100 stage shows. And so I did a lot of great stuff in the last 10 years, but the first 6 or 7 were a struggle. Like, I remember showing up the night there. I'm from a very small town. Like, in upstate New York, my town is like 200 people. Going to Chicago is kind of intimidating and scary. That's like, millions of people. Going to LA, and I don't know if it was because the expectations or because I just couldn't navigate it. I was bawling my eyes out. They didn't have our room reservation ready, didn't know what the fuck was going on, and I felt that lost for the first 5 years living in LA. Like it was insane. And like, and they're all like, nobody walks in LA. You have to buy a car. At one point, I paid $500 cash for a car with a manual transmission. Why is that funny? Because I don't know how to drive a stick. Still don't. Destroyed that car. Let it sit on the street until they towed it away. I was a dumb 20-some-year-old kid. Not everybody who's 20 something is dumb. I was. And just spent years struggling and not quite understanding even why I was there, and stuck it out because I thought I had to. And then once the pandemic pushed me out, 8 months into living here, I sold my first book. I've written a couple books and self-published, but I sold my first book to an entity that wasn't me who actually wants to publish it, and it was just
Yeah.
like, oh, you had time to relax and be yourself and not constantly be thinking about how your career's going. And it's interesting how you suddenly just sold a book. But like I say, I love LA, and I have so many of my friends are there. The majority of my friends live in LA, so I do miss them. I was part of this show called A Drinking Game, and it is basically what it sounds like. We would do stage readings of 80s and 90s movies, sometimes later, and the audience would drink, but so would we. Like our first show ever was A Princess Bride. We did that 13 times. I played Vizzini, and I played the Six Fingered Man every time. And I played Marty McFly when we did Back to the Future. I played Garth when we did Wayne's World. It's my favorite thing that I've ever done. It gives me chills to think about. And at some point when I'm comfortable here in Detroit, we're gonna do it here too, because it's spread. It's in Austria. That show's in Austria now. It's in Minneapolis, New York City. And so I don't know. LA was good. LA was had a lot of really great stuff to it. And I miss the friends. I don't miss much else though. A little expensive, that kind of stuff.
Oh,
And
just a
yeah.
little bit.
Don't love the weather. Don't love the fucking wildfires. My God.
Oh yeah, I've
Yeah.
I've seen the news. When I
Yeah.
lived in Alaska, we had a wildfire, and I was
Hmm.
like, I'm fucking done with that. But y'all, LA had some nasty wildfires.
Where did you live in Alaska, if I might ask?
Anchorage.
Anchorage. Okay. My dad was stationed in on Shemya for a year or so in the
Mhm.
Aleutians, and he doesn't have great memories of it. But that's mostly because it was just like whiteouts, and like a lot of healing people that were very damaged, like fishermen who'd lost fingers
Right.
and stuff. And I'm like, oh God, Dad, like the stories he has, it's crazy.
I medically retired out of Fort Richardson in Alaska,
Uh huh.
so I decided to stay up there, which is good and bad.
Hmm.
And then I finally made the move to move back to the East Coast. But I loved Alaska until it got cold. Like my first day
Yep.
that I was in Alaska was -25, and I was like, I'm good.
Uh huh. Uh
It was
huh.
like it was like so cold that like you couldn't even tell how cold it was.
Okay.
I had a beard because I was traveling, so my beard was like frozen. It was insane. And then
Wow.
I actually grew my beard out. And then when I got out, and then it would freeze because the sweat and then the cold just
Wow.
compound. Yeah,
Uh huh.
insane. I'm happy with my 80, 90 degree weather now.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's nice.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not complaining one bit. But anyways, what was like your so you talked about the most enjoyable thing that you did with the drinking game. What was your coolest interaction that you've ever had with somebody where you're like, holy shit, it's not what I expected?
Ooh, not what I expected. That's hard. Because I used to do this podcast called Comedy on Vinyl. I did that for like 11 years, and because of it, I got to meet most of my heroes. Most people turned out to be either what you thought they were or a lot better. I will say maybe the one I didn't expect was do you know who Billy West is?
Yes.
Okay, voice of Fry for anybody who doesn't know. Fry and Futurama and Zoidberg and Professor Zoidberg and the Professor. And going back, he's Ren and Stimpy. He's one of the greatest voice actors of all time. I'm a voiceover guy, and he weirdly agreed to do my podcast, and we did a 2-hour podcast with him in which he just did voices, even though I didn't ask, and I love that he did him. Just talked and talked and talked, and then he stuck around for an hour, hour and a half after we were done recording, just bullshitting with us in
Wow.
my tiny apartment in Burbank, and that was like, oh my god, like. There's a weird part of you. It's like I made it, and there's another part of you is like nobody else would give a shit because this is a weird niche voiceover thing. So most people don't know who this is, but he's one of my personal gods. You got Phil Hartman, you got Billy West, you got a few other people who are up there. I got to sit with this motherfucker, and he was just the nicest dude, sweet. And again, hour and a half bullshitting with us when he did not have to. He could have gotten the fuck out. And stuff like that happened a lot, but that is one of the more memorable ones because it was just so long and also pleasing the whole time. You know?
That's yeah, that's pretty awesome. I mean, when somebody gives you their time and then afterwards they give you more time,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
You're like, oh, I guess I was okay. Like you don't always know because people usually got time to get out. They gotta they got a heart out, whatever they got to
Yeah.
do. And yeah, when they stick around, it's like, oh, okay, this was all right. This is all right. And a few of those people I made friends with, and that was also weird, but it was cool.
Oh, you're human too?
Yeah,
Well,
right.
who would have known? Who would have thought? No, that's I got to meet somebody in 2011. So like I said, I was a huge wrestling fan. I got to meet my favorite wrestler,
hmm
and like I was a full ass adult by this point. Like,
Sure,
and I was in the army, and I had a kid on the way, and like I got to meet my favorite wrestler, and I was like, oh, this is cool. But the dude hung out with us for an hour,
love it.
and like talked to my daughter's mom on the phone,
hmm
like the nicest guy ever.
Love it.
And I was like, holy shit. But then you get people, I mean, I'm pretty sure that you've heard some rumors about Billy West where you're like, a little less than desirable, but you got to remember that everybody has their day.
Sure. No, that's the other thing too. Is like if you hear one story or even two stories or even three stories about somebody. Now, I will say I've never heard anything bad about Billy West, but I have heard shitty stories about people I have interviewed.
Yeah.
For instance, you hear a lot of bad. I've heard a lot about bad stuff about Harry Shearer. He was the nicest man, and frankly, I was like, hey, can we real quick? I said it in a sideways way. I was like, let's talk about I didn't say this, but let's talk about the fact that people sometimes think you're an asshole. And I didn't quite say it like that, obviously. And we went over it, and it's just like, I was like, you're probably a perfectionist, and that's what people are perceiving. And he's like, yeah, I think that's what it is. And so that's what we talked about. We just talked about him being a perfectionist. And it turns out like people just don't like to be, nobody likes to be told what to do by somebody who actually knows more than they do. And, like most of the time, people and I met a ton of celebrities. I worked at a toy store in LA. And so those are the little moments that you can judge people based off of. And like I met a couple of people who are like, oh, that guy, I used to love him. He's a dick. And then I would meet them later on in another situation. No, you just had met them at the wrong moment. And they were perfectly kind the second time. It's hard because like sometimes these are your heroes, or this is the only time most people are going to get to meet this famous person, and you make a flash judgment because it's just we're human and we're weird, you
Yeah.
know.
I think that we have this propensity as human beings to forget that not all of us are perfect.
Yeah, 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 and like the little shit, like I think hopefully we've learned by like the Me Too movement and other things that this little shit doesn't really matter in the same way as the big shit, you know.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. This little disagreements like this whole Lizzo thing. It doesn't necessarily matter
Right.
compared to everything else happening in the world.
Yeah, 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 or even compared to all the other good shit they do. Like, Again, I'm not there, so I can't totally comment, but some of these things seem blown out of proportion, like that one in particular.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So, you wrap up in LA. You decide to move to Detroit. Why'd you move to Detroit?
We have family here, and LA was getting ridiculously expensive, and had an opportunity to save some money and also be like where where my wife is from, and figure it out. And part of me was like, maybe I want to be somewhere where I don't constantly feel like I'm comparing myself to everybody, even while I'm locked in doing during COVID, by the way. And I think that helped. I know it helped, as a matter of fact. Like being able to walk around a town that's mostly green, pretty big relief. Not as many trees in LA, bad air quality. Those little things like really change it. Pardon me. And no film industry here is not as much as there used to be. So not as much competition in the same way.
Well, that's good. That's
Yeah,
good.
you know.
So I ask a lot of people that are in recovery because the whole lockdown changes people in
hmm
different ways. But like you're not being in recovery or anything like that. How did the pandemic affect you personally?
Um, boy, I am an anxious person and easily depressed, and all the stuff that comes with being me.
Yeah.
I got a lot of shit going on, so it exacerbated a lot of that. But and as I say, I still mostly don't leave my house, but it's not out of fear; it's out of just concern for my family, for other people's, and it changed me in that it made me I think I think like a lot of people sort of appreciate the people who are closest to them more, especially the people you live with, because if you were ever afraid that that person was going to drive you crazy, the pandemic was going to test it. And I think we lucked out. Well, I lucked out. I'm sure I'm driving her nuts, but like it's turned out to be I don't know. It's rough. It's still very rough on me, but for the most part, I've come out the other end okay and appreciating things a little more. Especially again, like career stuff picking up too is very weird. You wouldn't
Yeah.
expect that to happen. Although right now, what's really funny is like any show like that I might be able to do because of my book, I can't do because of the strikes. So,
Oh.
you know what I mean?
Oh
You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like I was
Yeah.
going to do all these fun podcasts and stuff, but the stuff that the TV shows that I don't want to do, but would help sell a book, you can't do because of the strike. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. There's a catch-22 everywhere.
But and I
Oh.
say that real quick. I will just say union strong, please. I do want the unions to win. I want that clear. I'm just saying on a very selfish level, it
Yeah.
would be very cool. You know, it
Yeah.
would be cool if I could do like as though like Jimmy Fallon's gonna have me on.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
the fantasy. Don't get me wrong. That's if well, I say Jimmy Fallon. Now let's say Jimmy Kimmel. We'll say Jimmy Kimmel, as though he'll have me on. Laugh, laugh, laugh. Because I know that wouldn't happen either. But it's a fun fantasy.
Hey, it's always good to dream big.
Sure, sure. But
Go.
at the end of the day, I'd also rather do any podcast than how frightening TV is.
Oh, I can.
TV is just scary, whereas podcasts are always people like me who are just like, I just want to bullshit. Can we just bullshit? And I love
Yeah.
that. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd much rather have a conversation than with somebody like this than have to stand in front of a crowd of people.
Yeah, it's scary. It's scary.
Oh.
Like sometimes I love it, but I mean, to be fair, I did it when I was drunk, so it's different.
Oh yeah, yeah. That liquid courage changed
Uh huh.
everything.
Uh huh. Very much.
You want to see my dick? Let's do it.
It's
Fuck
fun. It's crazy. Like actually doing that show, I was kind of afraid because there's alcoholism in my family. That's in the genes, and I was like, should I be doing this? Is this tempting fate? And for the most part, worked out okay. There's about a year there where I was like, maybe this is too much, and that's when you just don't actually drink. You just fake drink during the show. But was very concerned because I'm like, I know what this can do to people. I
yeah,
know I've seen how rough that shit can be, and like how strong you have to be to stop it. Like
yeah,
that is fucking tough. So
yeah.
yeah, I was always on the lookout, just making sure I hadn't fallen into it.
That's good.
Yeah.
Going back to pandemic thing, dude. Like,
Mm-hmm.
pandemic started right as I got into recovery.
Oh my god.
So I went from like going to meetings and
Mm-hmm.
and every everything in person to you can stay at home and do all of it. And I was like, I don't have to be around people.
Uh-huh.
Sweet. Fuck it, bring it on. I'll play as many video games, watch as many movies as I can as humanly possible. All the ice cream I want, fuck it, let's do it. See, it had the adverse effect on me. I was like, I don't
Yeah.
have to be around people. I hate people anyways. Let's do it.
I mean, I can see that too. Because I know some people for whom the group therapy aspect of a lot of recovery is shit to them. They're like, I can't do this. This doesn't work for me. Or I'm not religious. I can't do the higher power thing. That doesn't work for me. And I totally get all that. But that your story is particularly interesting. So he's like, I don't want to do the group therapy thing because I don't like groups of people. I
Yeah,
get it though. Like I kind of get it.
like now where I'm at, I love people. I love human beings. That's
Yeah.
why I do this, right?
Yeah.
But when I was in that space where it
Yeah.
was like you have to do this, I was like, fuck this. I'm
Yeah.
cool with being by myself and like
Yeah.
not doing anything.
Yeah.
I would go to a pawn shop and be like, how many DVDs and Blu-rays can I buy with
Wow.
$20
Wow.
of movies that I haven't seen? Let's go do it.
Sure, yeah. On a
Yeah.
level though, like I mean, you did culture yourself up a few levels. I mean, that's not bad. Like that's
Oh
kind of
yeah.
great. It's interesting what will lead you down those paths though, right? Like that will get you
Yeah.
to like finally watch this movie or finally do this or as you say, eat a shit ton of ice cream because you can and you're a grown ass boy. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Whatever
Dude,
pushes you to that.
the pandemic helped me watch Bram Stoker's Dracula because I wouldn't have watched it
Wow.
any other way.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. But so moving out of that and into what you're doing now.
Mhm.
You wrote a few books
Mhm.
and you have one that you're selling. What is that book about?
So it is about the history of 90s TV sketch comedy. I was born in 1980, so the 90s was the perfect time for me to start getting interested in a thing, right? And that's when little kids back in the 50s would get into astronauts and bullshit, and I got interested in sketch comedy, and I have never let go. The book I pitched like 5 different versions of this book before we settled on 90s TV sketch. But turned out it was the perfect thing because I had forgotten a lot of these shows, or at least forgotten their impact on me. Like it's like, yeah, I know that show exists, but then you actually sit and think about it, and I'm watching like episodes of In Living Color I didn't realize I had memorized because they're still in my blood, and I'm like, oh, that pattern, that cadence, that timing and shit is still in me, which means it's influencing how I do sketch today. You just don't realize it. Um, and so I interviewed 150 people for this book over like 6 to 8 months. Anybody from some people were writers, some people were directors, producers, and then, like the big stars. Like I interviewed Carol Burnett, Mike Myers, Bob Odenkirk. Those are the ones I always remember, but I interviewed so many people. And the forward is by David Wayne of the State. I don't know why he agreed to write that, but thank you, David Wayne, for doing that. It was an amazing interview. Don't get me wrong, we had a great time, but yeah. So it's me trying to do the history of like 20 of these shows that came out, and then mini histories on another dozen, and then very tiny histories on like 30 to 40 other shows because there's too many. I could not cover them all in one book. I will expand a little if I get a second edition. But and then there were other chapters about like Improv Olympic, Second City, the Groundlings, other little theater, UCB, little theaters and stuff that influenced the development of sketch comedy throughout the 90s and way before as well. So it's kind of exhaustive, but there's a lot in there. And I think I've heard from people younger than me, like Gen Z almost, that are interested in it. So that's exciting that people are interested in it.
That is pretty awesome. That is awesome. I
Yeah.
think one of I would have to say, In Living Color was great.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. My favorite, and I think it was severely underrated, was Mad TV.
Oh yeah, sure. There's
God,
especially those early years are great. There's a lot of great stuff there.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So before we shut down shop or anything like that, like obviously you talked about the strike, and for us regular folk that really don't know what's going on, would you elaborate as to what led to the strike and why the strike?
I am not qualified because I have never been union. That's the thing. Like
Okay.
I have never been a union writer. Like I never managed to get on a show, never managed to get a, representative as an actor, and that's because I spent so much time having a day job to support me just making my own shit.
Yeah.
My ethos has always been very DIY since I was a kid. I'm like, nobody else is going to make it or let me make it. I'll make it myself. Internet comes around, I can finally distribute it myself. That's just been my ethos. That actually runs through the book. And I asked most of those people, or they would end up telling me without me asking about their DIY ethic. And it turns out that's just a sketch comedy ethic throughout the years. Like going back to Carol Burnett, learning to build sets for the first troupe she was a part of. So I don't know enough, although I do know, long story short, execs are taking this much money without distributing it, and they want to let AI write shit when that is fucking monstrous. You should
Yeah.
not be it's a fun toy. That's it. Like the AI is a fun little toy. It may one day be able to help you, I don't know, monitor your air conditioning better, on its own. Outside of that, don't let it write scripts. It's insane. But yeah, long story short, at the very least, I'm on the side of both the union striking, in the hopes that one day I join them as well. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the AI stuff happening now, like, I've heard stories where like some music artists are coming out and saying, "Hey, this song was not written by me,"
Uh-huh.
and then it comes out saying AI did it, and the AI is selling better records than the actual artist
Right.
is,
Right.
and that's sketchy. That's really
Yeah.
sketchy.
Yeah, and I will say this, no matter who says that, at the end of the day, also there's this element of, if you've ever seen anything AI's written, it then needs so much tweaking that a human rewrote it. And there's no getting around that. Like you have to rewrite it to make it give it a semblance of something good. You leave the weirdest, goofiest shit in if you're doing comedy. You if you're writing a song, you leave the stuff in there that seems most like a song would sound, and then you tweak the rest of it. So there's no doubt that like a human would need to fix it anyway. Why go through that effort? Why not have the effort the a human do step one and then let them also? It'd be like, do you give a lump of marble to a machine that used to build Chevys? Like, do you allow that to do the first hacks at it and then see if you can fix it? That makes no fucking sense because it's going to
Yeah,
make nothing. It's going to make garbage, or it's going to make it in its own image and you're just going to get a granite marble thing of a robot. So it doesn't really help at the end of the day. That's all a convoluted way of saying don't fuck with AI. Just use it as a toy.
right, right, and we're gonna turn it. Eventually we're gonna land up in the land of iRobot.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Is that one of the movies you got to watch
No,
and binge? Okay.
no, no, no. But Will Smith is gonna have to save us.
It's true. I think inevitably what we've learned today is regardless of what happens to this world, Will Smith, if it's aliens, if it's robots, Will Smith will have to save us. I think we all know that.
Zombies,
Zombies as well.
robots,
Thank
and
you. Yeah.
aliens.
You're right. 100%.
God, that man has saved the planet on how many accounts?
I know.
Jesus. I said Will Smith, and I didn't even think about Independence Day or I Am Legend.
George
But
Foreman, if George Foreman attacks the planet, he as Ali will have to fight him and beat him.
yeah, Jesus Christ. Oh, yeah, but it's weird how many movies like Will Smith has been in where he's either saving the planet or saving somebody.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he's good at it. It's because, as he says in Men in Black, I make this look good. It's not wrong. He's
No,
like he's pure charisma. You can watch him do just about anything.
yeah.
Yeah, he's great.
Now, if he could settle that beef with Chris Rock, it'd be great. Because I like Chris Rock and Will Smith, and I don't want to have to choose.
Right, right. That's fair. That's absolutely fair.
I don't want to have to choose. Please don't make me choose. But, anyways, okay, okay. Now that we're on talking about saving the world thing and Independence Day, did you
Sure.
think of did you pay attention to the news where they said aliens are real?
Yeah, I keep seeing stuff like that where which by the way, I'm a person who's like, if aliens are real, cool. Like I'm perfectly open minded to that idea. Like that'd be great. Like maybe, like who knows? That shit's fascinating to me. But it's weird because the government's like, yeah, we have AEPs now, UFOs, whatever you want to call it. Like we're admitting that they're there. That's not admitting a whole lot. All that is admitting that you don't know something, which is a step in the right direction for any government agency. Don't get me wrong, like, yeah, we don't know what this is. It's it might be a little scary. Here, take a look for yourself. Yeah, so that's kind of, to me, that's the biggest lesson, is like the government is suddenly willing to admit it doesn't know something. That's odd to me. But whatever.
The craziest thing that got me was watching the press conference where the whistleblower was talking about what he experienced,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
they were asking him a series of questions, and they said, "So, have you ever witnessed a unidentified non-human body?" And he's like, "Yes."
Mm-hmm.
Okay, has anybody experimented on said body? And he was like, "Yes." And then,
Uh-huh.
has anybody died because of it? He's like, "I'm not at liberty to say." Man, you know the answer. All you got to do is say yes. You've already said yes to all these other questions.
Wow. I didn't
Come
see that.
on,
That's friggin' hilarious. Wow.
God, absolutely insane. I was like, okay, well then let's just come out and say the aliens are real and that
Yeah.
Roswell happened and that all
Yeah.
these other things have happened.
I mean, if only to help redeem some people who are in their 90s now who have been called insane their whole lives. I would hope to let a little redemption, even if they're kind of off the mark, a little redemption for some of the things that have been assumed to be facts for a very long time anyway. Like, I'd like to know. Yeah, I'd love to know. My dad was stationed at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, which is supposedly where they actually kept the aliens.
Yeah,
And I remember my dad telling me that, like, Dad, can we go to the hangar? He's like, no, we can't go to the hangar. What are you talking about? I'm like, come on, Dad. I was way fascinated with this stuff in high school. I loved that stuff. And now I'm just like, can you just confirm or deny? Give me some information.
just tell me.
Just tell me.
Yeah, and it's weird because like watching that, like them say that, it's like, okay, well some of these movies that are
Uh-huh.
like supposed to be fake
Mm-hmm.
might just be real, right? Like Pacific Rim. I love Pacific Rim.
Sure.
It's like Godzilla like creatures could live in the Mariana Trench.
That'd be great. That'd be great. That'd be hilarious. I at this point, is that worse than COVID? I don't know. Like, it might be easier to fight.
It might be easier to fight because you can see it.
Yeah, we can build a giant robot. You get enough people. They put them together for fun in Japan. They have giant actual, like, they move a little slow, but we could figure it out. Come on
Yeah,
now. If the
yeah.
military puts money into it, they'll make it work. We know
Like
that for a fact.
if the military can make a cloaking device,
Yeah.
they can make a robot.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, all right. So before we jump off here, I always like to ask my guests, what is one piece of advice that you would give to somebody that is thinking about getting into the field that you're getting into, or thinking about making that move to LA, Hollywood area to pursue a passion? What would you give them?
The best advice that I ever got, and this was after I moved to LA, was from Thomas Lennon from the state. And I emailed his people. I don't remember why, but I had the guts to email me. I'd love some advice from Mr. Lennon. Can I, And he emailed me back and just said, greenlight yourself, which is to say, greenlighting is when a studio buys your pitch, buys your movie. Before you've written it, they're like, "This is great. We greenlight this. They buy it. We're going to go ahead and actually produce the goddamn thing." Greenlighting yourself is just as 20 years ago, this was groundbreaking, to make the shit yourself. Everybody does that on YouTube now. That it is now just a reality of the world, but it is a thing to think about, even if you're not going to do video production or acting. If you can write a book and you want to self-publish it, you should do it. If you're gonna, and anything like that, you can make it yourself, and that might even just be a way of getting it out of your system before you either write something better or discover you want to do something different, or you want to work with a group of people and you finally find your sea legs. As far as like moving out to LA, save an assload of money. The one thing that they always say is like, don't have a backup. Go out there with no plans and enough money to live, which is probably not the worst idea. But I had to have a backup, and I had to have a day job personally. So I can't say go out there and don't have plans to have a day job, because having a day job is not the worst thing in the world. Because you can, especially if you don't have a family yet, you can bust your ass in your off hours and make something happen. Um, if you're the kind of person who absolutely needs to have that limit of, I'm not going to have a day job. I'm just going to, like, I don't know if you know who Chris Gethard is. He's pretty famously got a story of like, He was told, look, you're not committing. You need to quit everything else except for writing. You only write now. And that worked for him. That would never work for me. So you've got to find a way that works for you and makes you most comfortable and allow you do have to live regardless. So this is a mishmash of advice saying just take care of yourself and prioritize your mental health because LA and the entertainment industry are very taxing. Take care of your shit and like don't beat yourself up if you don't think you're succeeding. Sometimes you are and you don't realize it. So
Yeah, yeah, we're our own worst critic.
oh yeah, absolutely. And don't compare yourself to other people. It's pointless. No one else is you.
Right.
Me and Sean are
Absolutely.
not the same person. Why would I compare myself with Sean? That would make no sense. We're not the same person at any point. If he sells his
Absolutely.
podcast tomorrow for $1 billion, I'll be a little pissed that it's not me, but it's Sean that did it. It's not me. Like we're not the same
Yeah.
person. So, that's a lot of advice to pack in a couple minutes, but I think the gist is there.
If I sold my podcast for $1 billion,
Hmm.
I'm hiding away.
That's fair. That's absolutely
Nope.
fair.
Nobody's gonna know I have that $1 billion at all.
100%. Same. 100%.
I'll
I'm
I'll
gonna
go
dress like
off.
this.
Yep. Yep. I always talk. So my girlfriend was like, "What would you do with money if like we stumbled on like $1 million,
Yeah.
like the lottery?" I was like, "I would live the same way I'm living now because you don't want to make yourself a target."
No, you don't. And also, like, I don't really need to live above what I'm doing. This is good. Like, and if I can survive on that, like, also the reality again of the millennial or Gen X millennial cusp as I am, the idea of us getting retirement and many of us buying a house is almost impossible. So,
Yep.
yeah, just hold on to it. You'll
Yep.
be fine.
At that point, I wouldn't have Kevin Costner money. I wouldn't be able to go buy a ranch. Okay. So like,
I love that your reference point is Kevin Costner money. I like that very much. That's where you specifically go.
hey, because my girlfriend's family has a horse farm, right? And
Uh
like,
huh.
so that would be like the line of work that we would eventually
Okay,
fall into.
I got you.
And Kevin Costner, Yellowstone.
Sure.
So that's where my head was at.
I love it.
But anyways, where can we find you, Jason?
Um,
Not physical location on
Sure.
the web.
Let me give you my real quick. Let me give you my coordinates. You
Shit.
can find me at sketchcomedybook.com is where you can find pre-order information about the book. If you're interested in that, pre-orders really do help. And jasonclamm.com is where you can well, it's hard to spell, but it's Klamm. That's my main website, but that is attached to sketchcomedybook.com. So you'll find me there anywhere. Anyway, I'm on Twitter at jclamm, JKLAMM, Instagram, Jason Klamm. I'm sometime on TikTok at jclom. But that's it pretty much. And stolendress.com is my podcast network. So you can check my many other podcasts out there.
Nice, nice. I just put a video up on TikTok and it hit 2.6 million views, and I was like,
Goddamn. Okay.
oh, oh. My next highest one was from like 2 years ago. It was 1.3, and I was like, okay, I feel a little special. And now I'm like,
Yeah.
fuck.
Yeah. Yeah. The most I got was 1.6 thousand for doing a Nathan Lane impression. But to be fair, that's very niche. It's a very
Yeah,
niche thing. People loved the impression, but yeah, I don't understand tick. By the way, really quick, 2001, I had a viral video then, and I will tell you, chasing that dragon of a pre-YouTube viral video is real rough. So I try not to beat myself up about not succeeding on TikTok because I'm not 19. I don't know what the
right.
fuck is going to work. But whatever you did, good luck. Good job there. And please give me some of that magic.
Hey, you know what? It's if people talk about recreating,
Yeah,
and keeping everything going viral, that's impossible in today's
it's
society.
absolutely impossible. The whole idea
We're
of something going viral is that it catches on without intention. And
Yeah,
like, anyway, so it's like, how are you going to recreate that?
yeah, you can't. But anyways, I'd like to thank Jason for hanging out with me. It's been awesome.
Thank you
I've
so
need
much.
I've needed the laughs today.
Well, good. I hope I helped a little bit.
I had a great time, and thank you for hanging out. You're more than welcome to come back anytime you want.
I would love to. You're a delight. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you, and everybody, thanks for hanging out with us. Thank you for joining us on this journey. And until next time, much love, y'all. Be good.